the fact remains that death and dying is all around us. As news organizations report daily death tolls, we're faced, each of us, with a difficult conversation to have with loved ones about the end of life. Here to talk about this delicate and deeply personal issue are two people who deal with this in their life's work: celebrant Sara Hawkins Brown and Pastor Connie Denbok. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Great to be here.
So, Sara, you help families walk through grief every day, and yet you say we've become a grief-phobic society. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that overall we have a hard time in our Western society dealing with things that are difficult in any way, emotionally, sadness, anger, fear, the unknown. And because we don't really talk about death a whole lot, it's just not it's not the dinner conversation that comes up. It's something that when we are faced with, which of course we all have to, that is our reality, we have to face dealing with the death of a loved one, both when we are dealing with the death and it's all of our sadness and grief and things like that that we don't want to feel, as well as if somebody we know who has lost a loved one, we don't know what to say, we don't know how to approach that person. And so sometimes we, in fear, I think, just opt for the option of not talking about it all. You know, we get your 3 days bereavement, you go back to work and you're just supposed to pick up life as though this massive, event has just happened. This person that was a huge part of your life is not physically here anymore. And we're just sort of expected to pick up and go on.
Yeah, to pretend we're happy and to move on. Connie, as a collective, do you feel we've grown numb to the increasing number of people that we're losing each day as we watch the toll go up every single night?
Well, one of the interesting things, I looked up my statistics before now, and I've done half the number of funerals this year that I had at this time last year. And I don't think it's because there are fewer deaths in the community. But what we're seeing more frequently are families that are opting not only not to be buried from a funeral home with a minister officiating, but families that are essentially opting to send grandma to the crematorium and go back to work the next day. And there has not been a historical precedent for that non-observance of farewells and death rites since the days when there were huge losses, say in the plague. There is a sense that we're hearing so much, we're seeing so much, we don't want to think about it. And so families aren't getting together, they're not grieving, and it's doing desperate things to them. I mean, Jesus said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." And when people try to skip mourning, it comes back at them in 1,000 ways. It comes back. We're seeing incidences of clinical depression, anxiety, alcohol use, cannabis use, even psychosis that I have never seen, particularly in young people before. And I think there is a collective grief, a collective mourning, not only for death, but for all of the things that we've lost. And we need a way to put it into a spiritual context.
So Sara, how do we face that? How do we face loss throughout this year, as Connie said, and also death? How do we face that honestly and in a healthy way?
The best way to get through grief is to grieve. So we really do truly we can't go around it. We can't go hop over it. We must move through it. And one of the ways that we do that is through a personalized, meaningful storytelling service that really reflects that loved one well. And so, but like I said, direct cremation, which is what we call those who just send them to the crematorium and have nothing, that was on the rise well before the pandemic anyways, because people just don't know that they have other options. There's wonderful ministers like Connie, there's celebrants like myself. There are lots of ways to, whether you call it a funeral, a memorial, a celebration of life. I don't really care what you call it, but that's such a critical first step, I believe, in people's grief journeys.
In the grieving. Okay, Connie, we just have seconds left. And I just want to hear from you. How do you resolve your faith? As you talked about, we've lost so much this year, expectations, loss of jobs, plans, all of those things, as well as loved ones. How do we find and ground ourselves in our faith during this time? We only have seconds left.
We have to go back to the manger, to the kid whose extended family were far away, couldn't make it for the birth, who didn't have the presents, who all he had was mom and dad and crappy surroundings. And we need to understand that we can find God in all circumstances, not just when things are looking fantastic.
So good. Sara Hawkins Brown and Pastor Connie Denbok, thank you so much for your time today.